Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new legal advice content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first one is titled, "Received a reckless driving ticket on my private property road/driveway." Before anyone gets upset about the speed, this is a gated-off private road/driveway. There were zero chances of another car being on it unless they broke through a locked gate and trespassed on clearly marked private property. So, my driveway is in a weird spot that goes alongside a highway for about 4 miles before turning off and up towards the house. The entire property is fenced off and gated/posted private property no trespassing. It is about 800 feet from the highway and slowly moves further and further from the highway. I use my driveway as a place to work out kinks in my cars, get them set up properly etc. before going to the drag strip. I love cars and try to do things as safely as possible, roll cages, proper harnesses and helmet etc. I never open them up on the road because I have no need to, I can do it on my own private property. Anyways, last night I was having fun with my newly broken and engine swapped car. Doing a few runs back and forth, and after the 6th or 7th run down, I notice a cop with lights on sitting down at the gate. I head down and tell him I'll be right back. I have to go get the key to the gate, but he insists I stay there. So, I stay, and he demands license, registration, insurance. I tell him I have none of those on me, and the car isn't even registered or insured. I bring it to and from the track/strip on a trailer. I tell him this because the car isn't even street legal and is a track car. So, he just gets my information from my name, DOB, address etc. I ask him why he's even here because this isn't a road, why is he stopping me? He tells me reckless driving and he has me on laser doing 162. I start to argue that this is a private road/driveway clearly because he's sitting behind a locked gate and how can I be recklessly driving on private property? He starts telling me I can go to jail if I keep arguing. After about 20 minutes of just standing at my gate, he gives me a ticket to sign for reckless driving. The ticket doesn't even have a posted speed for the road on it because this isn't a road. What do I need to bring to the court date to show this isn't a road and he has no jurisdiction to enforce traffic laws on? I'm not trying to cause a huge issue, but it's kind of stupid he even gave me a ticket. I didn't feel like continuing to argue with him because it was going nowhere. I live in Texas and the sheriff's department is who wrote the ticket. Update. Before my court date came up, I went around to the different county records offices and found an up-to-date plat map, confirmed with several people that my driveway is not a road. I even had a friend come by who usually does drone photos for farms and had a nice photo of the entire property taken showing the driveway with a GPS marker so that it can be lined up with the plat map so there's no confusion on if my driveway is or is not a road. 2 days before my court date I received a call asking if I want to take a deal on the reckless driving and avoid the court time etc. I said no and confirmed the date with them. Court date rolls around and my 10:30 a.m. time is just an estimate apparently. So I wait around until 2 p.m., right before I'm finally called up. I'm offered the deal one last time. Again, I decline. This is where it gets odd and I'm not 100% sure what happened, but the judge opens a folder and briefly reads it, then calls up the county attorney. They talk for about a minute, then my case is dismissed. So that's it. I asked a sheriff outside the courtroom if it's possible to talk to the judge about it and I'm told the best way is to write him a letter. Not sure what he read in the folder, but I guess it was enough for him to see it was a pointless ticket. I did not see the sheriff who wrote me the ticket anywhere either that day. So, I guess we did it Reddit. Or something, who knows, but now I get the fun of trying to figure out what my insurance wants as proof, so my rates don't jump because of the ticket. The next one is titled, "Neighbor shot my brother's drone, doesn't want to pay for it." This is in Central CA, in the influence of city limits. So, kind of rural. My brother was flying a drone on our parents' large property when our neighbor shotgunned it down. We know the drone was above our property because it crashed next to our driveway, around 203 feet from the dirt road dividing the neighbor's property from ours. My brother confronted the neighbor and the neighbor said to bill him, verbal. He tallied up the cost of damage and sent him an itemized bill for $700. Over email. The neighbor then said he'd pay half and requested my brother next time give him the courtesy of letting him know when he's testing surveillance equipment. There was no camera on the drone, or the cost would have been an additional $300. My brother responded to the neighbor's offer by pointing out that the drone did not have surveillance equipment and was above our property when it was hit. He also pointed out this is the third time discharge from the neighbor's firearms hit my parents' property. He accidentally shot the garage door, and the bullet hole is still there. We've also been rained on by pellets from his skeet shooting. My brother added that he only expects full remuneration for the damaged equipment, and that if he were to charge for an entirely new rig, the cost would have been $1,500. The neighbor responded, "Your facts are incorrect. I now consider the matter closed. What are our options?" Update. Filed a report with a county deputy. It's now up to the DA whether to file felony charges for destruction of property, because the gun that destroyed the drone fired birdshot. It's not going to be negligent discharge of a firearm. We'll also further pursue in small claims court. Update. The judge ruled in favor of my brother in small claims. The neighbor owes my brother $850. The wheels of justice turn slowly indeed. Big thanks to all who contributed to the original thread. My brother, I wasn't there myself, said it was helpful to watch the judge preside over the small claims case prior to his, so he'd understand how best to present his own case. He decided to keep his arguments simple and concise, to avoid explaining evidence he handed over, and to mostly stay quiet unless asked a question by the judge. He also made a concerted effort not to be a smartass. The neighbor, on the other hand, argued a few times with the judge. I guess that's a bad idea. Next step will be collecting, of course. It seems the protocol, based on what I've read here and elsewhere, is to send an email and certified letter requesting payment, and if that doesn't work, and it probably won't, the neighbor is pretty stubborn, garnish wages or place a lien on the guy's property. No criminal charges came of the police report we filed, but that's fine. The goal was to get him to pay for the damaged property. It was also expected as the neighbor is buddies with members of the sheriff's department and works for a local assemblywoman. The next one is titled, "A neighbor of mine is harassing me and talking to management made it worse." California. So, the acoustics in the building are pretty terrible and the walls are thin. Most people in the building have a white noise machine, earplugs, etc. because you can hear every step. I have made sure that I am quiet by what the lease designates, but this person gets upset when I watch TV to the point where they'll sit by the wall we share and complain about me. I stay up late for school and work, so quietly walking to bed at 1 a.m. wakes her up and she'll turn on all the faucets, stomp around, scream we can hear everything and then turn up her TV for an hour. Basically, I've been documenting their behavior and I contacted management that I would want to end my lease or switch units and no reply. Then the next day I hear her shouting about me again, saying how it's my fault she's not allowed to be on the phone anymore and hangs outside the building while glaring at me on my way to work. She has a history of peeking in my apartment prior to the lockdown. A few days ago, she started to shout through the walls when I had the TV on at 7 p.m. I get the lockdown is getting people in a mood, but I honestly can't live with headphones all the time because I want to avoid being screamed at through the walls. What are my options if management won't let me leave my lease or switch units? Update. Things escalated to the point where my neighbor screamed for 3 hours, at one point outside waking the neighbors. I called the cops, and the neighbor hid out in their unit and didn't answer the door. There were threats earlier in the week to smash all my electronics. I missed 2 days of work to pack up as much as I can and hired movers. Moving had to be delayed because I can't focus on effectively packing with bullying through the walls, albeit not a loud volume. I'm effectively homeless, crashing on couches and Airbnb and storing my stuff in different garages. This neighbor had my full name and screamed "You're ducked" through the walls. She has some sort of vindication against me and is blaming me for things that I had no direct part in. Apparently management evicted her when I initially requested to break my lease in fears of this happening. I have reason to believe that management forwarded my complaints directly toward her based on her complaining, meaning she has my personal email as well. I am going to see management later this week to directly speak to them about ending my lease. But I am wondering if I have a legit case for getting my moving expenses and other costs covered given their correspondence escalated the situation. For context, this is a luxury apartment complex in a gentrified area. The last one is titled, "My creepy neighbor built his fence about 4 feet within his yard and comes to the other side to mow, rake, I don't know what, his small strip of land every time I use my pool. Is this legal?" Connecticut. I'm sorry if this post is a little convoluted, but stick with me and hopefully, you'll see my problem. It's just a little tough for me to explain. The former owners of my house had a dog in the backyard, 1/4 acre, pretty suburban small, is fenced in on 3 sides by a chain link fence which they owned, and on 1 side by a chain link fence belonging to their neighbor. The neighbor's fence was there before they installed theirs, so they just sidled up theirs to his and the dog couldn't get out. This was the situation upon my purchasing the home in May 2015. The old owners spoke highly of this neighbor in question. They were an above middle-aged couple and the husband used to chat with said neighbor over the fence while doing yard work. The wife would share veggies from her garden, and they would keep an eye on each other's properties. I have had a bit of a different experience. I doubt you want to read about all of the uncomfortable interactions I've had with him over the past 3 months, but suffice it to say that this 70-year-old widower thinks his new 26-year-old single neighbor would make a great romantic partner for him. He also somehow thinks that having a copy of every Playboy magazine put out since like 1970 is something that would impress her. I've never been so keen to get out of a basement in my life. Anyway, I quickly realized that I couldn't smile or be polite to this guy without him feeling as though I'd invited him into my front yard, invited him to touch my arms, hair, hands, or to keep me engaged in a one-sided conversation for as long as he could. I was feeling very uncomfortable with his prolonged eye contact and constant hints that he was lonely, and so I began to give him the cold shoulder. He pressed it for a while, but I guess he realized what was going on, and that's when he removed the fence. As the fence started to come down, I wasn't really worried. I figured it was his tactic to provoke me, or a little temper tantrum, and so I ignored it. I'd only use the pool when he wasn't home or was simply inside during these times. The fence was previously only chain link, so it's not like I ever had any privacy anyway, but he was awfully noisy about removing the fence and I didn't care to hear it, not just the tools, but the frequent exaggerated sighing, grunting, and wheezing. It felt as though he was just begging me to either offer him help or ask him why he was removing the fence. I didn't care to play that game, so I'd ignore it, but it was annoying the same, so I stayed inside when he was working for these 4 days. To my surprise, however, the day after the fence came down, a new one went up, 4 feet further into his property than the old one. The new one is wooden, about 5 feet tall and solid. I figured it was a gesture to me that he doesn't want to see me anymore or something. Whatever. I continued to ignore it. When I came home from work the next day, I saw that the men who had installed the fence had now also installed a waist-high gate, in matching wood, which connects from his new fence to my fence, which begins on my property line, runs perpendicular to his fence, and ends at the side of my house. So basically, his fence is an L shape, 100 yards by 4 feet, but the 4 feet head towards my house, not his. This looked strange to me. I realized that now my yard is once again fenced in on all 4 sides, but that now about a 100 yards 2 strip of his land is enclosed within it. Was he trying to offer me a gift of land and privacy in exchange for my resumed attentions? I was suspicious of the fact that the 4-foot bit was a gate, however, instead of more fence. He's basically built himself a gate into my yard, although it's technically his property. Yeah, well, I didn't have to wonder long, because the bullshit began almost immediately. Since this was constructed, 95% of the time I'm in the backyard, mostly using the pool, but sometimes doing yard work or gardening. He's letting himself in through the gate and ducking mowing his little strip of land, not setting a single toe onto my property. When he's not mowing, he's laying grass seed, sanding his fence, raking leaves. What the duck I don't know. Taking a break to sip from his water bottle and just gazing into the distance behind me. He's on the strip for only like 20 minutes at a time, but I can count on at least 1 appearance for every time I put on a swimming suit. It's been 3 weeks of this now and I'm so over it. I should be able to feel comfortable in my own yard. I've been researching fence prices and stuff, but it seems like anything I can afford is see-through and not high enough for him not to be able to see over if he stands right next to it. I'm also not sure if I'm even allowed to put up a fence without some sort of permit. Is his fence and what he's doing even legal? If I can borrow some money from my boss, and get a 6-foot solid fence, would that be a spite fence? Basically, I know I need to do something, but I don't know what or how and would like some advice and ideas. I scraped together nearly all of my savings for the deposit on this house, in order to get a better interest rate on the mortgage, so I'm not very solvent ATM. My boss has suggested that we build our own fence. He has a whole workshop full of tools at his home, and a pickup truck, but even just the wood from Home Depot would be pricey if I want to make it solid. Personally, I'd straight up patch one together using wood from pallets. They're free, but I'm 95% sure something that ugly would be a spite fence. My bosses offered to lend me the cash, but IDK. That seems a bit awkward to me, but I'll do it if I have to. I know other PPL but none in a position to lend cash. Update. On Monday I went to City Hall to ask all of these questions, as they're county specific and so no one here could really answer them. Not to say y'all didn't give me the best advice possible. You did, and I really do appreciate it. Well, after wandering the building for a while and ending up by several different secretaries, it turned out that I should have gone to the town clerk's office. My lunch break was nearly over, but I went there yesterday. The person working there, alone, apparently, wasn't very kind to my ignorance and I believe she saw me as entitled, which I may very well be, IDK. Basically, he did and is doing nothing illegal. I shouldn't have led him on, and it's nearly time to close the pool anyway. Of course, I can build my own fence. Of course, it can be 6 feet high. Of course, I can decorate it however I'd like, it's a free country. Also, she insisted on writing down my address from my license and told me I'd better get the pool enclosed as soon as possible or I'd be facing a lot of unnecessary trouble. So, after work I swung by Walmart and grabbed a pallet. They're free to take from the back parking lot. No, not by stealing, they're actually just free. I can only fit one on my car at once and it's a 20-minute drive in each direction, but on my way home from work. So I texted some friends who live by and I've got such a huge volunteer army by now to truck pallets for me that I'm afraid we'll be taking them faster than Walmart disposes of them. So, after work today I'm hosting a pizza/pool party for anyone who shows up, hopefully with a pallet in tow. Of course people who don't are also welcome. Friends have texted friends and I'm looking at feeding 12+ people tonight. They're also all joking about how they'll pee on his new fence/strip of grass. But I'm making it clear that this better stick to jokes. I don't need an inebriated, well-intentioned friend escalating things. My boss has the weekend free and says we can get started on making the world's most ghetto patchwork pallet fence. I hope the weather will be nice. Some Redditors pointed out other cheap fencing solutions, but nah. If he's allowed to do this and I'm allowed to build a spite fence, then spite fence it will be. So sorry I'm so classless, but I think this should be fun. Thanks for listening.